The colony ship Endeavour drifted through the endless black void of space. It had been traveling for almost 8 years now. The ship was old and tired. Its hull showed signs of damage from countless tiny impacts with space dust. The fusion engines at the back glowed with a dim blue light that flickered sometimes when the power system struggled. Inside the ship, 3,000 human beings lived their lives. They slept in rotating shifts. They grew food in the agricultural sections. They raised children who had never seen Earth and never would. They dreamed of a new world around a distant star called Proxima Centauri. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge and watched the stars through the main viewing window. She was 52 years old with gray streaks in her black hair. Her face showed the lines of someone who had worried too much and slept too little. She had commanded this ship for 6 years now, ever since the previous captain died from a heart attack. Elena did not expect what happened next. Nobody did. The sensors started beeping. Lieutenant Park, the young officer at the scanning station, looked at his screens with confusion on his face. "Captain," he said slowly, "I am seeing something strange." Elena walked over to look at his screens. What she saw made no sense at first. There was an object approaching the Endeavour at incredible speed. It was moving faster than anything humans had ever built. Much faster. "What is that?" Elena asked. "I do not know," Park admitted. "It is not a natural object. The shape is too perfect. And it is slowing down." The object came closer and closer. As it approached, the ship's cameras finally got a clear image. Elena felt her heart stop for a moment. It was a spacecraft, but it was not human. The alien vessel was beautiful in a strange and frightening way. It looked like a living thing made of silver metal and blue light. It was shaped like a teardrop, smooth and perfect. There were no visible engines, no windows, no antennas. It was 5 times larger than the Endeavour. "All hands," Elena announced through the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. We have encountered an unknown vessel. This is not a drill. Everyone remain calm and stay at your stations." The alien ship stopped about 1 kilometer away from the Endeavour. It just floated there, silent and mysterious. For almost an hour, nothing happened. Elena and her crew waited and watched. They did not know if they should be excited or terrified. Then the alien ship sent a signal. Dr. James Okonkwo was the ship's chief scientist and xenobiologist. He was a tall man from Nigeria with a gentle voice and curious eyes. He had spent his whole career dreaming about this moment. Now that it was actually happening, he found that his hands were shaking. "The signal is complex," he reported from his station. "It contains mathematical patterns. I think they are trying to establish communication." It took 3 days to decode the alien message. The aliens were patient. They waited without moving, without threatening, without doing anything at all. On the 3rd day, James finally broke through. The message was a simple question, translated into mathematics that any intelligent species could understand. "Who are you?" the aliens asked. Elena recorded a reply. She explained that they were humans from a planet called Earth. She told them about humanity's first steps into space. She described their mission to find a new home among the stars. The aliens responded with an invitation. They wanted to meet. The meeting took place aboard the alien vessel. Elena went with James and 2 security officers. They wore their best uniforms and tried to look confident. They were brought aboard through some kind of energy field that pulled them gently through the hull of the alien ship. Inside, the alien vessel was even more impressive. The walls seemed to be made of light. The air smelled sweet, like flowers after rain. Everything was clean and perfect and beautiful. The aliens were waiting for them in a large circular room. Elena had tried to prepare herself for anything. She had imagined all kinds of creatures. But the reality was still shocking. The aliens were insectoid. They stood upright on 4 legs and had 2 additional limbs that served as arms. Their bodies were covered in a hard shell that was dark green in color. Their heads were triangular, with large compound eyes that reflected the light like thousands of tiny mirrors. When they spoke, their mandibles clicked together rapidly, but somehow the sounds became words that Elena could understand. "Welcome," the lead alien said. "I am Ambassador Kethrix of the Vethkai species. I represent the Galactic Concordat." Elena stepped forward and tried to keep her voice steady. "I am Captain Elena Vasquez. I represent humanity." Kethrix's compound eyes studied her carefully. "Humanity," he repeated. "A species we have not encountered before. This is most interesting. The Concordat must assess all new spacefaring species. This is our law." "Assess?" Elena asked. "What do you mean?" "We must determine your capabilities," Kethrix explained. "Your technology, your biology, your history, your potential. This information helps us understand where you fit in the galactic community." Elena looked at James. He nodded slightly. They had no choice but to agree. The assessment took 2 weeks. The Vethkai were thorough. They scanned the Endeavor from top to bottom. They took samples of human DNA. They downloaded the ship's entire database, including all of human history and culture. They measured everything and recorded everything. During this time, Kethrix spoke with Elena many times. He was ancient by human standards, over 400 years old. He had seen countless species join the Concordat. He had watched civilizations rise and fall. He spoke of the galaxy with the casual authority of someone who had seen it all. "The Galactic Concordat has existed for 50,000 of your years," Kethrix told Elena one day. "We are an alliance of 200 spacefaring species. We maintain peace and order across 100,000 star systems. We have ended wars. We have prevented extinctions. We have guided young species toward wisdom." "That sounds wonderful," Elena said carefully. "How do new species join?" "They must prove themselves worthy," Kethrix replied. "They must demonstrate sufficient advancement, technology, philosophy, social stability. Most species require thousands of years of guidance before they are ready." Elena noticed the way Kethrix said, "most species." There was something in his voice that she did not like. A kind of superiority, a kind of pity. When the assessment was complete, Kethrix called a formal meeting to deliver the results. Elena brought James and her senior officers. They gathered in the circular room where they had first met. Kethrix stood before them with a holographic display floating in the air. It showed images of Earth, of human ships, of human cities. The Vethkai ambassador began to speak. "Species designation, human," he announced. "Planet of origin, Earth, Sol system. Current population, approximately 9 billion. Space exploration status, early interstellar. First colony mission in progress." He paused and his mandibles clicked in a way that Elena had learned to recognize as a sigh. "Technology assessment, primitive. Propulsion systems are based on basic fusion reactions. No faster than light capability. No energy shielding. No directed energy weapons. Communication systems are limited to light speed transmission. Medical technology is basic. Average lifespan under 150 years. Elena felt her face grow hot with embarrassment. She forced herself to remain calm. Kethrix continued. Biological assessment. Carbon-based bipedal life form. Moderate intelligence. Strong emotional responses. High aggression markers. Social structure assessment. Tribal and competitive. History shows constant warfare between internal factions. multiple extinction-level conflicts recorded in recent history. The holographic display showed images of human wars. World War I, World War II, the resource wars of the 21st century. Mushroom clouds and burning cities and millions of dead. Psychological assessment. Prone to violence. Prone to tribalism. Prone to short-term thinking. Capable of creativity and cooperation, but consistently undermined by internal conflict. Kethrix turned to face Elena directly. His compound eyes showed no emotion. Final classification. Pre-emergent species. Tier 7. Elena did not know what that meant, but she could tell from the tone that it was not good. Tier 7? She asked. The lowest possible classification for a spacefaring species, Kethrix explained. It means you have achieved space travel but lack the advancement for meaningful participation in galactic society. The Concordat's recommendation is observation only. No technology transfer. No alliance. No trade agreements. James stepped forward. But we made it to the stars, he protested. We built ships that can cross between solar systems. Surely that counts for something? Kethrix made a sound that might have been laughter. Young one, he said with patience that felt like an insult. Achieving space travel is not impressive. It is the minimum requirement. A child learning to walk is not the same as an athlete running a race. Your species has taken its first steps. That is all. Elena felt anger building in her chest, but she pushed it down. What about other new species? She asked. How were they classified? The last species we encountered was assessed at Tier 4, Kethrix replied. They had developed basic faster-than-light travel. Before them, a species at Tier 2. They had energy manipulation technology that was quite elegant. He paused. In 50,000 years, I have never seen a species classified as low as Tier 7. 15 years passed like water flowing through a river. Time changed everything and nothing. The Endeavor had reached Proxima, Centauri, and established humanity's first colony on a rocky world they named New Hope. It was not a paradise. The soil was thin and the weather was harsh. But humans were stubborn creatures. They built domes and farms and factories. They raised children and buried their dead. They survived. 2 more colonies followed. Kepler's landing around a distant red star. Armstrong's station in the asteroid belt of another system. Each colony was small and struggling. Each one represented years of sacrifice and determination. Humanity had spread to the stars. But in the grand scale of the galaxy, they were still nothing. A handful of settlements clinging to survival in an ocean of darkness. The Galactic Concordat had granted humanity observer status. This sounded important but meant very little. Humans were allowed to receive transmissions from the Galactic Communication Network. They could watch and listen to the great events of the galaxy. But they could not participate. They could not vote. They could not trade. They were children allowed to sit in the corner while adults conducted business. Elena Vasquez was no longer captain of a colony ship. She was now admiral of Earth's combined space fleet. It was a grand title for a humble reality. The fleet consisted of 47 ships, most of them converted cargo haulers and mining vessels. They had basic weapons and thin armor. Any single Concordat warship could have destroyed them all in minutes. Elena knew this. She thought about it every day. She stood now in her office at Fleet Command on Luna, Earth's moon. Through her window, she could see Earth hanging in the black sky like a blue and white jewel. 8 billion people lived there. 8 billion lives that depended on decisions made in this room and rooms like it. General Marcus Chen sat across from her desk. He was a serious man with short gray hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. He commanded Project Prometheus, humanity's most secret military program. Very few people knew it existed. Even fewer knew what it was really building. The Kethmari hegemony has sent another ultimatum, Chun said. He handed Elena a datapad with the translated message. Elena read it quickly. Her face showed no expression. The Kethmari were different from the Concordat. While the Concordat claimed to maintain peace and order, the hegemony believed in conquest and domination. They were an empire of warriors, always expanding, always hungry for new territory and new subjects. They had been watching humanity for years. They had sent scouts and spies and observers. And now they had made their intentions clear. Submit to hegemony rule, Elena read aloud, or face corrective action. All human worlds will be absorbed into the hegemony within 1 standard year. Resistance will result in extinction. She put down the datapad and looked at Chun. What does the Concordat say? She asked. Chun's face twisted with something like disgust. They have offered to send a peacekeeping fleet to protect us. But their message makes it clear that protection means occupation. They want to claim Earth before the hegemony does. Elena stood up and walked to her window. She stared at Earth for a long moment. So we have 2 choices, she said slowly. Become slaves to the hegemony or become pets of the Concordat. There is a 3rd choice, Chun replied. Elena turned to look at him. Project Prometheus? Chun nodded. We are ready, Admiral. Or as ready as we can ever be. Elena walked back to her desk and sat down heavily. She was 67 years old now. Her hair was completely gray, and her joints ached on cold mornings. She had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Part of her had hoped it would never come. Tell me the status, she said. Chun activated a holographic display above Elena's desk. It showed a map of the Sol system, Earth's home. Little dots of light appeared throughout the map, in the asteroid belt, around the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, hidden in the dark spaces between planets. 12,000 combat vessels, Chun reported. Most of them are small attack craft, but they are fast and heavily armed. We have built them in secret facilities scattered throughout the system. The Concordat's observers never noticed because they were not looking. They assumed we were incapable of significant military development. Elena smiled grimly. They assumed we were too primitive. Their mistake, Chun agreed. We also have kinetic accelerators mounted on asteroids throughout the belt. They can launch iron projectiles at 3% of light speed. No shield technology in the galaxy is designed to stop that kind of impact. What about our other developments? Elena asked. Chun changed the display. Now it showed diagrams of weapons and ships and systems that looked nothing like anything the Concordat had ever seen. Our nuclear weapons have been upgraded, he explained. The galactic powers abandoned nuclear technology thousands of years ago because they considered it primitive. They developed energy weapons and shields that made nuclear bombs useless. But we have designed warheads that can penetrate those shields by detonating inside them. How? Elena asked. Their shields stop energy and radiation, Chun said. But they allow physical matter to pass through at low speeds. Our missiles look harmless until they are already inside the shield barrier. Then they explode. Elena nodded slowly. It was clever. It was the kind of thinking that came from desperation and creativity combined. What about electronic warfare? She asked. Chun's face showed something like pride. This is perhaps our greatest advantage. The Concordat and hegemony have used the same communication and computer systems for thousands of years. They never bothered to develop strong security because no one ever challenged them. We have spent 15 years finding weaknesses in their systems. We can jam their communications. We can confuse their sensors. We can even take control of some of their automated systems. Elena stood up and walked around her office slowly. She was thinking hard, planning, calculating. What are our chances? She finally asked. Be honest with me, Marcus. Chen was quiet for a moment. If we fight one of them, we can probably win. Our tactics are unexpected. Our weapons are designed to exploit their weaknesses. We have the advantage of fighting in our home system where we know every asteroid and moon. And if we fight both of them? Elena pressed. Chen's silence was answer enough. Elena walked back to her window. Earth turned slowly below her, peaceful and beautiful, and completely unaware of the storm that was coming. We will fight both of them, she said quietly. We have no other choice. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Ketherix sat in his office at the Concordat's diplomatic headquarters. He was reviewing reports and making decisions that affected billions of lives. It was boring work but necessary. A message arrived marked urgent. Ketherix opened it without much interest. Urgent messages arrived every day. Most of them were not truly urgent. This one was different. It was a report from the observation team assigned to watch humanity. Ketherix had almost forgotten about the primitive species he had assessed 15 years ago. They were not important enough to remember. But the report contained disturbing information. Human activity has increased significantly, the report stated. Industrial output has grown by 400%. We have detected unusual energy signatures in several locations throughout their system. Purpose unknown. Ketherix frowned. 400% growth was impressive for any species. For a Tier 7 species, it was almost impossible. He sent a query to the observation team. What are they building? The response came back quickly. Unknown. Our sensors cannot penetrate their asteroid facilities. They appear to be using some kind of interference technology. Ketherix felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was a small feeling, easily ignored. But it was there. It was concern. He pushed it aside. The humans were primitive. They had crude ships and limited technology. Whatever they were building could not possibly be significant. The Concordat had seen countless species try to rise above their station. They always failed. He filed the report and returned to his other work. The humans were not worth worrying about. Meanwhile, the Cathmari hegemony prepared for war. Their first armada assembled at a staging point 3 light years from Sol. 3,000 warships gathered in formation. Their hulls gleaming with weapons and shields that represented 50,000 years of military development. High Admiral Zethrak commanded the armada from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He was old even by Cathmari standards, a warrior who had conquered 100 worlds and never known defeat. His body was covered with scars from battles fought long before humans had invented the wheel. The humans have been given one final chance to submit, his second-in-command reported. They have not responded. Zethrak made a sound like grinding stones. It was laughter. They are foolish, he said. But their foolishness will make the conquest more enjoyable. I grow tired of species that surrender without fighting. What resistance can they offer? His second asked. Our scouts report they have fewer than 50 ships. Old designs. Primitive weapons. It will not be a battle. It will be an execution. Zethrak nodded slowly. Still, we will not underestimate them. The Concordat's assessment says they are violent and creative. These qualities can make even weak species dangerous. The Concordat is sending their own fleet, the second reported. 2,000 ships. The Cathmari First Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter. 3,000 warships emerged from nothing, their hulls shimmering as they transitioned back to normal space. They spread out in perfect formation, a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across thousands of kilometers. High Admiral Zethrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the sensors come alive with data. Jupiter hung before him, a massive ball of swirling storms. Beyond it, barely visible, was the tiny blue dot of Earth. "Scan the system," Zethrak commanded. "Find me the humans." His sensor officers worked quickly. Information flowed across their screens. The Admiral waited with the patience of a predator who knows his prey cannot escape. "We have located the human fleet, Admiral," an officer reported. "They are positioned between Earth and Mars, 47 vessels in defensive formation." A holographic display appeared before Zethrak, showing the human ships. They were small and ugly, their designs crude and industrial. Metal boxes with engines attached. No elegance. No beauty. No threat. 47, Zethrak repeated with amusement. "They send 47 ships against 3,000. Either they are brave or they are stupid. Probably both." His second-in-command stepped forward. "Admiral, the Concordat fleet has arrived as well. They are taking position on the opposite side of Jupiter." Zethrak's eyes narrowed. He looked at the display and saw the Concordat ships appearing. 2,000 vessels, their design smoother and more sophisticated than his own. They were built for defense and peacekeeping, not conquest. But they were still dangerous. "Open a channel to the Concordat commander," Zethrak ordered. "Let us see what lies they wish to tell today." The face of Admiral Kethvox appeared on the communication screen. He was a Vethkai, the same species as Ambassador Kethrix. His compound eyes reflected the light of his bridge. "I, Admiral Zethrak," Kethvox said with cold politeness. "The Concordat has arrived to protect the humans from your aggression. We demand that you withdraw your forces immediately." Zethrak laughed, a harsh sound like breaking rocks. "Protect them? You mean steal them? The Concordat has no claim to this system. We arrived first. We sent our ultimatum first. The humans belong to the hegemony. The humans are a developing species under Concordat observation," Kethvox replied. "They cannot be claimed by any power without our approval. This is galactic law." "Galactic law," Zethrak spat. "Laws written by the Concordat to serve the Concordat. The hegemony does not recognize your authority here. Withdraw, or we will treat your fleet as hostile." The two commanders glared at each other through the screens. Neither would back down. Neither would show weakness. Finally, Kethvox spoke again. "Then we appear to have a standoff, High Admiral. Perhaps we should ask the humans themselves what they want." Zethrak considered this. It was a delay tactic, nothing more. But it might be useful. Let the humans see the power arrayed against them. Let them understand how hopeless their situation was. Then they would surrender, and the Concordat would have no excuse to interfere. "Very well," Zethrak agreed. "Contact the human commander. Let us hear their pathetic pleas." The communication channels opened. A third face appeared on the screens of both alien commanders. She was an older human female with gray hair and steady eyes. She wore a simple uniform without decoration or rank insignia. "This is Admiral Elena Vasquez," she said calmly. "Commander of Earth's combined space fleet. I understand you both wish to speak with me." Zethrak leaned forward. "Human commander, I am High Admiral Zethrak of the Kethmari hegemony. You have received our ultimatum. Surrender your worlds to the hegemony, or face destruction. This is your final chance." Elena's expression did not change. "I received your message. I chose not to respond because I found it rude." Zethrak blinked, surprised by her tone. No species had ever spoken to him this way. "Rude?" he repeated dangerously. "Yes, rude," Elena confirmed. "You threaten to exterminate my species if we do not become your slaves. Where I come from, that is considered extremely rude." Before Zethrak could respond, Admiral Kethvox spoke. "Human commander, the Concordat is here to offer you protection. Accept our assistance, and you will be safe from the hegemony's aggression. Protection? Elena asked. You mean occupation. I have read your terms, Admiral. You want to station your ships in our system permanently. You want to control our development. You want to decide our future for us. That is not protection. That is a cage with nicer bars. HFY's mandibles clicked with irritation. You are a Tier 7 species. You cannot possibly defend yourselves against either of our forces. Accepting our guidance is your only logical option. Elena smiled. It was not a friendly smile. There is a third option, she said. You could both leave. Silence stretched across the communication channels. Then Zithrak began to laugh. His laughter went on for a long time, harsh and cruel. Leave? He finally managed. You think we will simply leave because you ask? Human, I have conquered 100 worlds. I have destroyed species older and stronger than yours. Your 47 primitive ships are nothing to me. Less than nothing. I understand, Elena said calmly. You think we are weak. You think we are primitive. You think we will kneel or die. I am here to tell you that you are wrong. She leaned closer to the camera. Her eyes were hard as steel. This is Earth's final warning, she said slowly. Leave our system. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is a warning. Leave now or face the consequences. HFY made a sound like a sigh. Human Commander, please be reasonable. You cannot fight both of our fleets. Mathematics alone proves your defeat is certain. Why throw away lives for nothing? I have never been good at mathematics, Elena replied. But I am very good at surprises. Zithrak's laughter had stopped. Something in the human's tone disturbed him. She did not sound like someone who was bluffing. She did not sound afraid or desperate. She sounded confident. What surprises? He demanded. Your 47 ships? Your primitive weapons? You have nothing that could threaten even our smallest warships. Elena's smile widened. High Admiral, she said, you measured our ships. You measured our weapons. You measured our technology. But you forgot to measure something important. What? Zithrak demanded. Our creativity, Elena replied. Our determination. Our absolute refusal to accept defeat. She turned to someone off screen and nodded. And our numbers, she added. Across the Sol system, things began to change. The first sign was the asteroid belt. Thousands of objects that both alien fleets had catalogued as debris suddenly began to move. They were not debris. They were ships, camouflaged and hidden, their engines cold and dark until this moment. Now they came alive. Zithrak's sensor officer shouted in alarm. Admiral! Unknown contacts emerging from the asteroid belt. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. On the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, hidden installations powered up. Massive doors opened in the ice and rock. Ships emerged in swarms, small and fast, their engines blazing with blue fire. More contacts from the outer planets. The sensor officer continued, his voice rising with panic. Admiral, they are everywhere. Behind Mars and Luna and a dozen other moons, humanity's true fleet revealed itself. 12,000 vessels emerged from their hiding places. They were not large or elegant. They were blocky and functional, designed for one purpose, war. The 47 ships floating between Earth and Mars began to split apart. Each large ship contained dozens of smaller attack craft. They poured out like wasps from a nest, filling space with their numbers. Zithrak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Where there had been 47 ships, there were now thousands. Where there had been empty space, there were now swarms of vessels. The entire Sol system seemed to be coming alive around him. Impossible, he whispered. This is impossible. They are Tier 7. They cannot have built this. On the Concordat flagship, Admiral Kethvox was having the same reaction. How? He demanded. Our observers have watched this system for 15 years. How did they build 12,000 ships without us knowing? His science officer worked frantically at his console. Sir, they hid them in plain sight. The asteroids, the moons, the debris fields. They built their ships inside these objects. Our sensors recorded increased mining activity, but we assumed they were gathering resources for their colonies. We assumed, Kethvox repeated bitterly. We assumed they were primitive. We assumed they were incapable. We assumed wrong. Admiral Vasquez's voice came over the communication channel once more. Hi, Admiral Zethrak. Admiral Kethvox. You now see what primitives can accomplish when they are motivated. But this is still not everything. Let me show you what else we have prepared. Throughout the asteroid belt, massive structures began to power up. They were mounted on asteroids, hidden under layers of rock and metal. Now they revealed themselves. Long metal tubes pointing toward the alien fleets. Kinetic accelerators. Mass drivers. Simple technology scaled up to terrifying levels. Those are weapons platforms, Zethrak's tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. They appear to be projectile launchers of some kind. Primitive technology. Primitive but effective, another officer interrupted. Sir, the projectiles they are loading are solid iron, each one massing several tons. The first kinetic strike changed everything. From the asteroid belt, the mass drivers fired. Each weapon was simple in design but terrifying in execution. Massive coils of electromagnetic force accelerated chunks of iron to 3% of the speed of light. The projectiles were invisible, traveling too fast for sensors to track. There was no warning. There was no warning. There was no defense. The hegemony cruiser was the first to die. One moment, it was floating in formation, its shields glowing with energy. The next moment, a projectile passed through its shield without slowing down and punched through the hull from one side to the other. The ship did not explode. It simply broke apart, torn into pieces by the force of impact. Then another ship died, and another. And another. High Admiral Zethrak watched in horror as his tactical display filled with red icons. 20 ships destroyed in the first volley. 30, 40. Shields have no effect. His tactical officer shouted. The projectiles are passing through like our shields do not exist. How is this possible? Zethrak demanded. They are physical objects, Admiral. Our shields are designed to disperse energy, not stop solid matter at this velocity. By the time the shield detects the projectile, it has already passed through. Zethrak's mind raced. In 10,000 years of warfare, no enemy had used kinetic weapons against shielded vessels. The technology was considered obsolete, useless, primitive. The humans had turned that assumption into a weapon. Evasive maneuvers, Zethrak ordered. All ships, random movement patterns. Do not maintain predictable positions. The hegemony fleet scattered, ships breaking formation to avoid becoming easy targets. But the humans had anticipated this. More kinetic strikes followed, targeting ships in motion, calculating their trajectories with terrifying precision. On the other side of the battlefield, the Concordat fleet fared no better. Admiral Kethvox watched his ships die one by one as invisible projectiles ripped through them. Return fire, he commanded. Target those weapon platforms. The Concordat ships opened fire with their energy weapons. Blue-white beams of plasma lanced across space toward the asteroid belt. Some found their targets. Weapon platforms exploded in silence. But for every platform destroyed, 2 more continued firing. And then the human fleet attacked. 12,000 ships surged forward in a coordinated swarm. They moved in patterns that no galactic fleet had ever used before. They did not maintain formations. They did not follow predictable tactics. They flowed like water, constantly shifting, constantly adapting. Squadron leader Sophia Reyes flew her attack craft into the chaos. She was 23 years old, born on Earth, trained on Mars. She had never fought in a real battle before today. None of them had. But she had trained for this moment her entire adult life. "Blue Squadron, follow me," she commanded through her helmet radio. "Target the Hegemony destroyer at coordinate 774. Hit them hard and break off before they can track us." A squadron of 12 small ships accelerated toward their target. The Hegemony destroyer was massive compared to their craft, a mountain of metal and weapons. Its gun turrets tracked toward them, firing bursts of plasma that lit up space. But the human ships were small and fast. They jinked and rolled, avoiding most of the fire. Sophia felt her craft shake as a plasma bolt passed close enough to scorch her hull, but she kept flying. "Missiles away," she called, launching her payload at the destroyer's engine section. 11 other ships launched at the same moment. The missiles were not large. They were not sophisticated. But they carried nuclear warheads, and they were aimed at a specific weakness in the destroyer's shield configuration. The missiles passed through the shield at low velocity, too slow to trigger automatic defenses. Then they accelerated suddenly, reaching the hull before countermeasures could react. They detonated together, 12 nuclear explosions that tore the destroyer's engines apart. The massive ship began to drift, powerless and dying. "Blue Squadron, break off," Sophia ordered. The ship scattered as the destroyer's remaining weapons tried desperately to track them. Across the battlefield, thousands of similar engagements played out. Human attack craft swarmed around alien warships like angry insects. They struck and retreated, never giving the larger ships a clear target. The alien commanders tried to adapt. They ordered their ships to concentrate fire on the swarms. But every time they destroyed a human ship, 3 more took its place. The numbers were overwhelming. High Admiral Zethrak finally understood what he was facing. The humans were not fighting like a civilized species. They were fighting like animals. Desperate, savage, utterly without regard for their own survival. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "enemy vessels are on ramming courses. They are deliberately crashing into our ships." Zethrak watched in disbelief as a small human craft flew directly into a Hegemony cruiser. The pilot ejected at the last second, their escape pod spiraling away as their ship plowed into the cruiser's bridge section. The explosion killed both vessels. "They are insane," Zethrak muttered. "They are completely insane." But he was wrong. The humans were not insane. They were simply willing to do what the Hegemony and Concordat had forgotten how to do. They were willing to sacrifice, to bleed, to die for their survival. Admiral Vasquez watched the battle from the Defiance, tracking the flow of combat across her tactical display. So far, the plan was working. The alien fleets were in chaos, their formation broken, their ships dying by the dozens. But humans were dying too. 400 ships lost in the first hour, 800 by the second. Each lost ship meant pilots and crew who would never go home. "Casualties?" she asked General Chun, who stood beside her. "Heavy," he admitted, "but sustainable. We are inflicting 5 times the losses we are taking." Elena nodded grimly. Mathematics. The math they had calculated before the battle. The math that said they could win if they were willing to pay the price. "The flagships?" she asked. "Both are heavily defended," Chung replied. "The Hegemony flagship Eternal Dominion and the Concordat command ship. Harmony of Ages are surrounded by their elite guard units. Conventional attacks will not reach them. Then we use unconventional attacks, Elena said. Deploy the Prometheus teams. Deep within the chaos of battle, specially trained units received their orders. These were not ordinary pilots. They were the best humanity had produced. The craziest. The most willing to attempt the impossible. Their mission was simple: board the enemy flagships. Captain John Santiago commanded the assault team targeting the Eternal Dominion. He and his 40 Marines rode in a heavily armored boarding craft designed to look like debris. They drifted through the battlefield, avoiding attention, getting closer and closer to their target. Remember your training, Santiago told his team. The hegemony have not fought infantry battles in centuries. Their ships are not designed for internal defense. Get in fast, cause maximum damage, and get out before they know what hit them. The boarding craft attached itself to the Eternal Dominion's hull near an airlock. Santiago's team cut through the metal in seconds. They poured into the ship, their power armor protecting them from the alien atmosphere. Inside, they found exactly what their intelligence had predicted. The hegemony crew were not prepared for boarding actions. They were technicians and officers, not soldiers. They had personal weapons, but they did not know how to use them effectively. Santiago and his Marines carved through the ship like a blade through flesh. They planted explosives on power conduits. They destroyed communication nodes. They created chaos wherever they went. On the bridge, High Admiral Zethrak felt his ship shudder from internal explosions. "What is happening?" he demanded. "We have been boarded," an officer reported, his voice high with panic. "Human soldiers are inside the ship. They are attacking our critical systems." "Impossible," Zethrak roared. "Send security teams. Kill them." But the security teams were too slow, too unprepared. By the time they reached the humans, the damage was already done. Power systems failed. Weapons went offline. The mighty Eternal Dominion became blind and helpless. Santiago and his surviving Marines reached an escape point. Only 18 of his original 40 remained alive. The price had been high. "Mission complete," he reported as his team extracted. "Enemy flagship disabled." Admiral Vasquez received the report and immediately issued new orders. "All kinetic platforms, target the Eternal Dominion. Fire everything." From across the asteroid belt, the mass drivers turned their attention to the crippled flagship. Without shields, without power, the Eternal Dominion was defenseless. The first projectile punched through the ship's command section. The second hit the engine core. The third and fourth and fifth tore the vessel apart from bow to stern. High Admiral Zethrak had just enough time to understand that he had been defeated by primitives. Then his ship died around him. The destruction of the flagship broke the hegemony fleet. Without their commander, without coordination, the surviving ships began to retreat. They fled toward the outer system, trying to reach the minimum safe distance for faster-than-light escape. But the Concordat fleet remained. Admiral Kethvox had watched the hegemony flagship die with mixed feelings. Part of him was relieved to see his rival eliminated. Part of him was terrified of what might come next. "Admiral," his communication officer reported. 3 months passed since the Battle of Seoul. The galaxy trembled with the news. In the great halls of the Concordat, emergency meetings stretched for days without end. Representatives from 200 species argued about what to do. The Vethkai delegation demanded a massive retaliation fleet. The Korath philosophers called for diplomatic engagement. Others suggested simply leaving humanity alone and hoping they would not expand. Ambassador Kethrix listened to all of it with growing despair. He was the one who had written the original assessment. He was the one who had classified humans as Tier 7, He was the one who had predicted their extinction within 500 years. Everything that had happened was, in some way, his fault. When the debates finally ended, Kethrix made a request that surprised everyone. He asked to visit Earth. The human government took several weeks to respond. When they did, they granted permission but demanded specific conditions. Kethrix would come alone, without weapons, without guards. He would submit to human security protocols. He would answer any questions asked of him. Kethrix agreed to everything. His ship arrived in the Sol system exactly 90 days after the battle. As he approached Earth, he saw the wreckage still floating in space. Human recovery teams worked among the debris, salvaging technology and recovering bodies from both sides. The alien dead were being treated with respect, prepared for return to their homeworlds. This surprised Kethrix. He had expected the humans to be vengeful, to desecrate the remains of their enemies. Instead, they were honoring the dead. Perhaps his assessment had been wrong in more ways than one. The meeting took place on Earth, in a place called Geneva. Kethrix had learned that Geneva was important to humans because of something called the United Nations, an organization that attempted to unite their fractious species. The city had been damaged during the battle when a piece of debris fell from orbit. Workers were still rebuilding. Admiral Elena Vasquez met him in a government building with broken windows and patched walls. She looked older than she had appeared in the communication screens, tired, worn down by the weight of command. But her eyes were still sharp, still defiant. "Ambassador Kethrix," she said formally. "You asked to speak with me." "I did," Kethrix confirmed. His translator device rendered his clicking speech into human words. "I wanted to ask you a question." Elena gestured for him to sit. They faced each other across a simple wooden table. No aides, no guards. Just two individuals who represented their entire species. "Ask," Elena said. Kethrix was quiet for a long moment, organizing his thoughts. "How?" he finally asked. "Your technology was inferior. Your numbers were smaller at first. You had no experience with interstellar warfare. Every metric we measured said you could not win. How did you do it?" Elena considered the question carefully before answering. "You measured what we had," she said. "You never considered what we could become." Kethrix tilted his head. "Explain." Elena stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the city. Buildings damaged and repaired. Streets crowded with people going about their lives. A species that refused to stop living even after facing annihilation. "Your assessment of humanity was accurate," she admitted. 15 years ago, we were exactly what you described. Primitive, violent, self-destructive. We had barely left our own solar system. We had no idea how vast the galaxy was or how many species were out there. She turned back to face Kethrix. "But humans have a quality that your assessment did not measure. We adapt. When faced with impossible challenges, we change. We grow. We become something more than we were before." "All species can adapt," Kethrix argued. "This is basic evolution." "Yes," Elena agreed. "But most species reach a certain point and stop. They find a comfortable level of technology in society, and they maintain it. They become stable, predictable, stagnant." She sat down again, leaning forward intently. "Humans never stop. We cannot stop. There is something in our nature that constantly pushes us to reach beyond our capabilities, to try things that should be impossible. Sometimes this leads to disaster. Sometimes it leads to war and destruction. But sometimes it leads to miracles." She gestured around at the damaged room. "When you told us we were Tier 7, the lowest classification in your system, we had two choices. We could accept it, or we could prove you wrong. You chose to prove us wrong," Kethrix said. We chose to survive, Elena corrected. Everything else followed from that decision. Kethrix processed this information. His people had watched countless species across 50,000 years. Most of them followed predictable patterns. They grew to a certain point, encountered challenges, and either stabilized or destroyed themselves. Humans were different. They had been on the verge of destroying themselves many times, yet they kept going. They kept reaching. They kept adapting. Your species reached the stars and stopped adapting, Elena continued. The Vethkai, the Kethmari, all the others. You developed advanced technology and then preserved it. You maintained peace and then forgot how to fight. You became so confident in your superiority that you stopped imagining anything could challenge you. She shook her head slowly. We reached the stars and we were just getting started. Kethrix sat in silence for a long time. Outside, the sounds of construction and human activity continued. Life going on despite everything. What happens now? He finally asked. The Concordat is debating how to respond. The hegemony is demanding revenge. The galaxy is watching to see what you will do. Elena's expression softened slightly. We have no interest in conquest, she said. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to destroy the Concordat or the hegemony. We want something simpler. What? Freedom, Elena said. The right to determine our own future. The right to explore and grow without being told we are too primitive to participate. The right to stand as equals among the stars. Equals? Kethrix repeated. Your technology is still far behind ours. Your population is smaller. Your territory is limited to a handful of systems. Technology can be learned, Elena replied. Populations can grow. Territory can be explored. What matters is not where we are today, but what we can become tomorrow. She stood up and extended her hand. It was a human gesture of agreement, Kethrix knew. Take this message back to your Concordat, she said. Humanity offers peace. We will not attack unless attacked. We will trade knowledge and resources with any species willing to treat us fairly. But we will not be ruled. We will not be managed. We will not be classified as inferior and told to wait 10,000 years for permission to participate in galactic society. Kethrix looked at her extended hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out with one of his own manipulator limbs and touched her fingers. I will deliver your message, he said. But I cannot promise how the Concordat will respond. Neither can I, Elena admitted. But this is a beginning. Perhaps the first step towards something better for all of us. The news of the meeting spread across the galaxy through the communication networks. Most species had never seen humans before. Now, they saw images of these strange bipedal creatures who had defeated 2 armadas. They saw their cities and their ships and their faces. And they saw something else. They saw courage. Dozens of species had lived under Concordat guidance for millennia. They had been told that independence was impossible, that they needed protection and management, that they could never stand alone. The humans had proven this was a lie. Within months, 17 species petitioned to join what humanity called the Soul Compact. It was not an empire. It was not an alliance in the traditional sense. It was something new. A gathering of equals who agreed to share knowledge, to trade freely, and to defend each other if threatened. The compact grew slowly at first, then faster. Species that had been classified as Tier 5 or Tier 4 began to reconsider their relationships with the old powers. If the primitive humans could stand against the Concordat and hegemony, perhaps they could too. General Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of humanity's first true battleship, the Never Again. It was a massive vessel, 3 kilometers long, armed with weapons that combined human innovation with technology recovered from the battle. Not as elegant as Concordat ships, but powerful, dangerous. Admiral Vasquez joined him, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. "Construction is on schedule," she reported, handing him one of the cups. "The new defense platforms will be operational within 6 months. The second fleet will be ready in a year." Chen nodded, watching construction drones swarm around half-completed ships in the distance. "Do you think they will come back?" he asked, "with larger forces?" Elena sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Probably," she said. "The hegemony will want revenge. The Concordat will want to reassert their authority. They are not used to being told no by species they considered inferior. Are we ready?" Elena looked out at the construction yards, at the ships being built, at the future taking shape before her eyes. "No," she admitted, "but we will